What's up, guys? Welcome to this special 200th episode of a Funko Popcast. I am DK Rustler.
And I'm MD Shady.
And today, the topic of our special 200th episode is none other than the greatest pops of all time. It was actually a topic we were going to be doing when we had celebrated our 100th episode, but then San Diego Comic-Con exclusives, I believe, got announced, and that's when we decided to do that for our special 100th episode for whatever year that was. I believe it was either 2021 or last year, 2022. I can't remember. But today is the greatest pops of all time. We're going to be going through every single year that Funko has done pops for, starting with 2010 all the way until this year in 2023 as we are recording this pod. And we will basically talk about some lineups that happened in that year and then our personal favorites. I guess beforehand, I should ask you, MD, how crazy is it that we are now 200 episodes in?
200 episodes. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Obviously, I haven't been in all 200 of the episodes, but pretty dang close. I mean, I only missed, I don't know, maybe 10 or 20 episodes. I don't know how many exactly, but 200 is crazy. Definitely a grind. And here we are at episode 200.
All right, so without further ado, we will kick off with the first year that Funko Pops were made, which was 2010, in which it would be the easiest year to talk about because there was only one lineup created in 2010. That was DC Comics, all in which were the first 10 Pops that were the pre-release for San Diego Comic-Con that year. So whatever the 10 Pops are, I know some of them being like Batman, Joker, Robin, I think the Flash was a part of it. All of those Pops from 1 to 10 were released at San Diego Comic-Con 2010.
I simply just wrote DC because that's all that it is, though there are some that I do like better than others. I'm not really gonna like differentiate the Chase from the commons because it's just metallic, I believe, for every single pop. But the Joker looks really cool. Batman's awesome. The Wonder Woman is decent as well. I mean, it's that classic, really classic look of pops, obviously being the first ones. If I had to like pick like a best pop, though, I'd probably go with Batman just because it is so iconic for Funko, because obviously the first ever pop made was a Batman pop. So I would say the best for 2010 is probably Batman.
All right, so now moving on to 2011. This would be the first year that Funko Pops were officially hitting stores at retail stores like Walmart and Target and stuff like that. We've seen the DC ones along with the Wave 2, but this also showed the first Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, and Ad Icons Pops to be released, whether it was in stores or during San Diego Comic-Con. The only ones that I listed down for 2011 that even could be considered as the greatest Funko Pops of all time, we got to mention about the 9-inch Buzz Lightyear metallic pop that Top Pops owns. I mean, that thing is pretty crazy. Before 10-inch, there was 9-inch. The D23 flocked Lotso, which is worth at least $2,000 Canadian. Crazy price point. Luckily, they made that classics pop. And then you got to mention about those monster Ad Icon cereal pops, because those were the ones that kicked off, because at that point, those were the only ones until I believe 2015, 2016 that we started getting more Ad Icon pops. So, I mean, Boo Berry, Count Chocula, Frankenberry, and they also had metallic exclusives to San Diego Comic-Con that were like, I believe that number they always used was 480 pieces. But yeah, those would have to be, at least in my mind, some of the greatest pops of 2011.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I have exactly the same thing written down. I have the flocked lot, so what an awesome looking pop. And yeah, thank God for that classics pop that came out for Lotso. And then I got the cereal monsters because they are awesome. I love the cereal monsters. I always have as a kid. So seeing them in pop form is really cool. The OG poses with the hand out, which is kind of like that creepy kind of monster thing to do, is all right. I definitely think there are better versions of these characters now, but for the time, those were wicked. I mean, so awesome and just complete grails at this point.
Now moving on to 2012. Now, examples of lineups that were made in 2012 were the first Pop TV lineup of Pops. The Game of Thrones Pops were created then, which kind of goes with the TV, but Game of Thrones has its own Pop lineup. The games lineup began in 2012 with, I believe it was Plants vs. Zombies that kicked off that set, if I'm not mistaken, along with the Sonic the Hedgehog Pops that we kind of bury all the time because of how ugly they look compared to what they look like now. And then the classic classics lineup back then, which is not the classics lineup that we have in today's age with the whole like tin can. It was like certain characters like Alex DeLarge, the original, that's actually one I should mention right now, is Alex DeLarge from Clockwork Orange, where the license wasn't really improved. And so when they did that and had the chases, there were only, I believe, a total of 12 of them made. And for the longest time was like the most expensive pop like ever until more recently, which I will get into of what pop that is. Certain lineups that I wrote down that came out in 2012 that I could think of off the top of my head. The Muppets were first released in 2012, and the first OG set of The Simpsons were also released in 2012. So those are some cool pops. So if I'm going to mention one of the greatest pops of all time that came out in 2012, from what I've mentioned, is probably Kermit the Frog. I mean, you've had the two versions with just the boxes, but nonetheless, I mean, that Kermit Frog, even to kind of 2023 standards, kind of still holds up. It could have a better posing, but I mean, that head mold, I mean, it could have been worse from when it was made.
Yeah, 2012, what a crazy year for pops. Big Bang Theory, which is pretty iconic for Funko Pops. I feel like the Big Bang Theory pops are probably the first ever pops that I ever seen at a store in our local mall. So that basically started it for me. That put me on the map for knowing what Funko was, besides obviously the Wacky Wobblers, but pop-wise, definitely Big Bang Theory, so that's crazy. The Muppets, one of my favorite sets ever. Love the Muppets so much. I collect a lot of different Muppet things, so the pops definitely are near and dear to me. I also have Yo Gabba Gabba written down because those pops were very, very interesting and they looked really cool. They were different from basically any pops that you've seen at that point because they were mostly like human characters or like kind of your stationary thing, but the Yo Gabba Gabba ones kind of skewed away from that kind of mold. I also have Zurg listed down. Zurg was an awesome pop from 2012. I hope that we see another Zurg pretty soon. And then the Kiss pops I also have written down because that is an awesome set.
Now, moving on to 2013, a couple of different lineups that were first created that year include WWE, which both MD and I collect, Sanrio, NBA, and the Holidays lineup. Certain licensors that started at that time include the Goonies, SpongeBob SquarePants, and Sons of Anarchy. And some of the pops that I wrote down that either are my favorites or that I do consider as like the greatest of all time. I mean, when you're looking at SOA, I got to mention about Opie. I got to mention about CM Punk with him working in AEW now, and at that time I believe he had like just left WWE when his pop came out. But then pops that I do think could be under the category of like the greatest of all time, especially because of how well they've aged, is Beavis and Butthead, released in 2013. Both those pops, both Beavis and Butthead, it would be really cool to get new ones at some point, especially the Great Cornholio, I need TB from my bunghole. But just those two, I remember, once again, it's one of those things of I could have bought it at a price where I thought it was high, but not as high as it is now. And then I put the Watchmen because of Rorschach, Dr. Manhattan, and especially in 2013, the San Diego Comic-Con bloodied Rorschach, which is one of, unfortunately, the most fake produced pops. So that's a pop where if you are trying to look for that in the secondary market, you got to be very careful because there is quite a bit of fakes out there.
Yeah, moving on to 2013, this is definitely where things picked up a little bit. I definitely have quite a few things listed down for 2013, starting off with the Heat Miser and the Snow Miser. Those are awesome. I really wanted those pops, but now there is the sodas, so I've kind of settled for the sodas. SpongeBob pops. Kind of weird looking, not gonna lie. Especially that like OG Patrick. Very, very weird looking pop, but Funko is still trying to get the hang of things and what they wanted these pops to look like. Obviously, now we know like what the Patrick pop looks like, but the SpongeBob pops were really cool, and some of those OG ones are pretty pricey at this point. I also do have the Sons of Anarchy pops listed down. I also have the Dark Knight 2-pack here with the Joker and the Bank Robber Joker. That's definitely a big grail piece for a lot of Funko fans. Beavis and Butthead, of course, I have listed down. Probably should have bought those as well when they were sitting around $100. Now they're more than that. So yeah, those are awesome pops that definitely hold up today. I also have the Turtles listed down. I mean, you got the 4 original Turtles, Splinter and Shredder, I believe. The Wizard of Oz, those pops were really cool. I wish I had those in my collection, but they are pretty expensive. And then I also have the Gremlins pops with the Gizmo and the Stripe.
Moving on to 2014, new lineups include animation, books, and NFL, and certain licensors that were created in 2014 include Breaking Bad, Dragon Ball Z, and the Flintstones. And when talking about specific pops, in my opinion, that either I like that came out that year or could realistically be considered as one of the greatest of all time. First, I got to mention about Heisenberg from Breaking Bad, and that's mainly because that was actually the second pop I ever bought. Yeah, that thing, if I ever wanted to sell it, which I don't think I will because of that sentimental value, like that's gone up in price. Another one I had to list down is the Planet Aurelia Vegeta. I mean, that's also a pop where if you're thinking of like one of the greatest pops of all time for Dragon Ball Z, that's got to be it. And once again, is actually may be like the most produced faked pop ever. Like I've seen so many people that are like, I'm selling my Planet Aurelia Vegeta. And you look at eBay listings and most of them are shipped in China, which, you know, if it's shipped in China, it's indeed a fake one. Whoever owns the real ones, like you got a pile of cash right there. And then for lineups that I do like, and they're actually pretty expensive pops for this lineup, it's Back to the Future, and it's the Time Machine with Marty McFly, which is a pop I do own. And then the pop that I don't think I'm ever going to own, nor do I really care of ever owning it, and that is the Glow in the Dark Doc Brown. It was some sort of weird, it wasn't even like Funko Shop, it wasn't even like a San Diego Comic-Con, it was like MegaCon or something. When I started collecting, it was like $600. I don't know if it was like Canadian or US, but now it's well over $2,000. Like it is a pop that I know I'm never going to get.
Yeah, the first thing I got to talk about is the Planet Aurelia Vegeta. Definitely one of the most fake pops of all time, if not the most fake pop of all time. God damn, is that pop ever expensive, and it's so cool. I really enjoy that pop. Some other things I have listed out, of course, Breaking Bad, a brilliant set. The NFL pops, and I think that these were pretty cool. You have without their helmets on, which was an interesting thing that they did, where you have the pop itself and then their helmet basically beside them, almost like a pop and buddy, but obviously a helmet is not a buddy. I have the Stitch pops, more specifically Stitch 262. The ET pops, I believe, came out in 2014. That set is pretty decent, obviously, with the newer ET pops. They are definitely a lot better nowadays, but at the time, those OG ones were pretty sweet. And then for 2014, I have a huge grail here. It is actually my most wanted pop currently, and that is the SpongeBob and Plankton TMNT 2-pack, where basically SpongeBob is Leonardo from TMNT and Plankton is dressed up as Shredder. And it comes in this like lunchbox with a window on it. Amazing pop.
Now moving on in 2015, which 2015 is a special place in both mine and MD's heart because that is the year we basically both started collecting Funko Pops. One of the lineups that were actually first created in 2015 was Harry Potter. Certain licensors that were created that year include Friends, Saved by the Bell, and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. In terms to best pops and favorites, I didn't really list much down, but I did have to mention about the Toy Story 20th anniversary set that includes Woody, Buzz Lightyear, Ham, and Rex, which I was able to get everyone except Rex at the time. And then MD, I had gotten him on one of his breaks at work to go pick it up for me, I believe, because I think I didn't have enough money at the time and I just owed him back. But then he never ended up getting it. But as terms to like the greatest pops, though, I have to go back to Breaking Bad and mention about the blue Heisenberg because I mean, like that's so pricey now. And then I probably have to mention like Unmasked Darth Vader, like the original one that I do own, or at least at that time, I believe it was a first to market Star Wars Celebration exclusive. So you have that one with the sticker.
Yeah, 2015, what a year. The Pirates of the Caribbean set, a really cool set that I want to try to collect at some point. Willy Wonka, of course, that is a set that I have one pop currently of, so I definitely need to crack down on the rest of those pops. The Shrek pops, those are wicked. I know there's only 3 pops with Shrek, Donkey, and Puss in Boots, but those are some really cool pops. The Friends pops, the eluded Friends pops that got away. If you guys haven't heard the story, me and DK, one day we rode our bikes to a few cities over, so quite a big bike ride to go visit like Hot Topic and like Toys R Us and stores like that. And we went to Hot Topic as the first store, and they had all 6 of the Friends Pops, and I really wanted them, but it was the first store and I didn't have that much money. I did not buy them, and I regret it to this day because that is an amazing set. Definitely the best set of Friends Pops. So yeah, the Friends Pops, they got away. I'm going to have to get them at some point, even if I do have to buy them piece by piece. The Blue Heisenberg, I also have listed down. That is maybe one of the most famous Pops of all time. I know people that aren't even fans of Funko that don't collect Funko, and they know about that Pop. They know about the price point. And I feel like that's because of like articles that you see on like, let's say Facebook or other social media that says like, oh, look at these Pops. They're so expensive. And obviously the Blue Heisenberg usually is on that list, and it might be like the thumbnail picture for it as well. I also have Sesame Street listed down, one of my favorite sets. I basically collected all of the Sesame Street Pops in 2015 or 2016, right when they were coming out. So thankful for that, though there is like one or two Pops that I'm missing from Sesame Street still. And then I have one other set listed down here, and I don't know what it is now because I wrote SBTB and I can't remember what that stood for. When I was writing it down, I remember, okay, I'm going to remember what this stands for, but now I don't know what it is. DK, do you have any idea what SBTB could mean?
Saved by the Bell?
Saved by the Bell. Okay, of course. It is Saved by the Bell. God damn. The first set of Pops I ever bought. How could I forget? Obviously, it started off with Zach Morris, and I believe I bought AC Slater at the same time. And then I went back and bought the 4 other ones. My favorite probably set of all time, just because it is so sentimental to me. It's the first set I bought. Saved by the Bell is one of my favorite shows of all time. So yeah, awesome Pops.
Now moving on to 2016. So 2016 had the debut of lineups like Pets, The Vote, if anyone remembers that lineup, and NHL. Licensors that were made include Looney Tunes, Rick and Morty, and Scooby-Doo. I'm sure that MD is going to mention Pops from at least Looney Tunes and Scooby-Doo, so I won't mention any, but I have 3 huge Pops from 2016. The first one, especially from Top Pops, would consider this as maybe his all-time, he needs to get this, like, absolute grail, is that San Diego Comic-Con big boy that is worth at least $2,000 that he's on the hunt for. Another one is from that same, actually all 3 of these I realize are from San Diego Comic-Con 2016. I just realized that. The Indiana Jones, him with the idol, like it was so crazy at that time, and that was the only one we got for so long. And then the one I have to mention, as terms to value of how much this is worth and how many pieces this is, this has to be on everyone's list of like the greatest Pops of all time if you're thinking unbiasedly. And that is the Golden Ticket 2-pack from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It's Willy Wonka and the Oompa Loompa, and they're basically all gold to match the Golden Ticket, but they're only limited to 10 pieces. Yeah, you heard that right. 10 pieces. 1-0. And recently there was a purchase made, and there's a whole like video that was made about it for $100,000. 6 digits. That's insane. Like between MD and I, we can like complete like at least 5 sets each with that kind of money. Even like MD could finish his OG Simpsons or the whole Simpsons and like get all the Muppets Pops and stuff like that. You could buy so many Grail sets for the amount that that Golden Ticket 2-pack had cost for $100,000. Insane.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start off there. I have the Golden Ticket listed down. Crazy. 6 figures. That's unbelievable. That's more money than most people make in a year. And yeah, it's got to be definitely in everyone's list of just some of the craziest things from Funko, whether it's your favorite or not. I mean, it's not really the greatest of a 2-pack. It's basically an Oompa Loompa and Willy Wonka, and they're gold. Makes sense. I mean, the Golden Ticket in the box, whatever. Really cool. I mean, really awesome. Anyone who has their hands on it, I mean, you got to feel lucky to have something like that. Definitely a historic moment with the sale of $100,000. I mean, that's crazy. Unreal. I mean, it really blows your mind. Besides that, for 2016, I definitely have some things listed down. One of my favorite sets, the Power Rangers, awesome set. Definitely a lot of different ones. There was like the metallic ones of each character. The Scooby-Doo set, that's a set that I saw at GameStop at the time. I should have bought it because I love me some Scooby-Doo. I have a ton, and I'm saying a ton of VHS and DVDs for Scooby-Doo. So I kind of feel like I missed out on those. Obviously, the NHL set had started, a set that I have some for, not all, mostly Washington. The Funko Shop exclusive, limited to 3,000 piece, I believe, Flocked Animal. I do own that Pop. Animal being from the Muppets.
Now moving on to 2017, some of the new lineups that were created include Comics, Zodiac, MLB, and South Park as a separate lineup. Certain licensors that were made that year include Riverdale, My Hero Academia, and Crash Bandicoot, to name a few. And I guess also another lineup I'll mention because it's on my list is the TV show The 100, which may be like the most graily of grails as terms to a set, especially that San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Lincoln, which is just absolutely, it's a pretty cool pop. This is where really stepped up of the detail. Like this was like, man, like so many pops, you weren't really getting arms to the side poses anymore. There was a lot of stances. Another one that I've listed down here, actually MD might have this one listed down also, the flocked Tony the Tiger from Frosted Flakes and the glow-in-the-dark Lucky the Leprechaun.
2017, yeah, what a year for Funko. I mean, things really started to change with Funko with the posing of the pops. And there was a lot of really great stuff that came out. The first thing that I have listed down is the Summer Convention 2017 Steve Harrington, one of my favorite pops of all time. Such a great pop. It's a pretty simplistic pop for the most part. I mean, it's Steve. He's got the nail baseball bat. He's got his classic season 1 look. He's bloodied up. Great pop. Really, really enjoy that. I also have the Kurt Cobains listed down. I have the whole set of 4. DK is still trying to complete that set of Kurt Cobains, and those pops are wicked. Fraggle Rock I have listed down. Sonic the Hedgehog got newer pops and newer molds, and those are great. I mean, those look so good. Tony the Tiger, of course, that's an awesome pop. I don't have the flocked one, which is a little upsetting, but I don't care too much about that. The Star Wars Moments pops came out, like those deluxe sets. Those are awesome. The Trash Compactor, wicked. I really enjoy that one the most, I would say. And then I didn't talk about the Looney Tunes in 2016 because that was just a couple different exclusives as well as Duck Dodgers pops. But now in 2017, we're actually getting the full first wave of Looney Tunes pops, as well as a couple really dang cool pops. One of those being Speedy Gonzalez, which was a huge grail for me for a long time, but I do own it now in my collection. And then probably my second most wanted pop behind that TMNT SpongeBob pack I was talking about, and that is the Bugs Bunny and Mr. Hyde 2-pack. That's another one probably should have pulled the trigger on before, but one day I feel like I will own that pop.
So now moving on to 2018, which 2018 had the debut of the Icons lineup, Royal Family, and Myths, to name a few. Licensors that were created in 2018 include Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Jurassic Park, and Fortnite. As terms to pops that I either think are the greatest of all time or like personal favorites, my number one favorite pop release in 2018, that is the Buzz Lightyear with Pizza Planet Trucks Pop Rides. I mean, that thing is just crazy. Like the amount of detail that is in that, and especially making the Buzz Lightyear like super tiny to be like accurate to the movie, is just insane. A pop that I also want to mention, I don't think a lot of people talk about this pop, but I mention it because of how innovative it was. That is the Professor Quirrell from Harry Potter, with the removable headpiece where on the back of the head it was Lord Voldemort. Nobody really talks about that, but how innovative that was and how amazing it was. There were so many fun pops. One last pop I'd mention, I'm sure it's on MD's list too, because I mentioned the licensor a bit ago, is that OG Target exclusive Pikachu that started off the Pokemon lineup, and we thought it was like, I mean, what ended up being promising, but like it became so much later on. But just that only Pokemon pop that year in 2018. We didn't get any more until they sporadically released the starters in 2019 and then seen waves in 2020.
Yeah, starting off with the Pizza Planet truck, really cool. I've yet to own that pop. I'm not surprised, but I am surprised that DK mentioned Professor Quirrell. I also have that on the list, like DK said, because of how innovative it was with the headpiece that you could remove and then see Voldemort on the back there, which is really cool. Some other pops that I have listed, have to list it, even though it's a pop that I kind of despise. That is the Gold Hopper. That's a pop I'm never going to own, but it's still cool, and it's a piece of the Stranger Things history with Funko, which is cool. I also have Captain Rex on this list. That is a pop that DK actually purchased for me for my birthday at the retail price, and now it's worth over $500 Canadian. Toucan Sam, wicked pop. That thing looks amazing. Great Ape Vegeta is so cool as well. I don't own that one. I have the Great Ape Goku, I believe. I don't have the Vegeta, but that is one that I really want. Though though I've kind of stopped collecting Dragon Ball. The Marty McFly with the guitar, an amazing pop, and we had gone to Fan Expo when the Funko booth was there. We waited in line, and it sucked too because we got there earlier and they said they weren't letting people line up or whatever, or you had to have like the ticket to get in originally, and then the general public could line up after that. And we were just a little bit late because the lineup was huge and we missed out on a couple pops that we wanted to get, that being like the Rush 3-pack, which I also have listed down. Then we have the Banana Splits. Those are awesome pops, which I'm surprised that I got at such a good deal because those feel like those should be like some big grail pieces in my opinion. I also have the Hulk with Hulkbuster. That pop looks ridiculous. You have Hulk kind of busting out of the Hulkbuster, and that looks really, really cool. And then the last pop I believe I have for 2018 is the, I'll call it Richard in a box.
Now moving on to 2019. 2019 had new lineups such as NASCAR, sports legends, and comedians, with new licensors such as The Office, Mandalorian, and Umbrella Academy. When talking about pops that were my personal favorites, because I don't think these are intentionally like the greatest pops of all time, Dwight Schrute, Three Hole Punch Jim, Prison Mike, all releasing that year. Those were such cool pops, especially Dwight being like one of the first pops that is a human character, and you can easily tell like that's Dwight Schrute or that's Rainn Wilson. While in previous years with a lot of human pops, you were like, oh, this could look like this could, but you know, like that was Dwight. I mentioned about Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2018, but I wrote Dark Magician because that came out in 2019, Hot Topic exclusive. Woody with RC, like I mentioned, in 2018 because of the Pizza Planet truck. I mean, that pop looks wicked, with especially the tires actually being made of like a plastic tread and not like a vinyl plastic, like if you feel with like the Time Machine pop rides and how it's like, you can definitely tell it's a vinyl feel and not the plasticky feel that normally you would feel on like treads for tires for certain cars. And then in terms to actual like for value sake and detail wise, Mandalorian with the blaster from New York Comic Con that year is a $500 pop now, and I don't even know how it went up that much. And one I had to write down for detail's sake, and I always say it's definitely one of the greatest pops of all time just of detail, is Hero Killer Stain for My Hero Academia. Just the detail on that pop just blew me away at that time, and it still blows me away even in today's standards. Like it might even be better than some of the One Piece pops in 2023, although those are some detailed pops, but nothing, I don't know what pop will really like overtake Hero Killer Stain as one of, if not the most detailed, like I guess anime pop of all time.
All right, 2019, I definitely have quite a few listed down here. The first thing is Pokemon listed down here because we are starting to get new stuff with Pokemon, obviously Charmander, Squirtle, Bulbasaur. I also have Three Hole Punch Gym, my favorite Office pop. And like DK said, with the Office set, they look so great where you're having these human characters that you know exactly who they are. They can't be a different character. It's exactly who they are, especially like DK said with the Dwight Schrute. I also have the Kang and Kodos 2-pack from the Treehouse of Horror Simpsons set. Amazing 2-pack, one of my favorite pops of all time. They look great. I've actually owned 2 of those 2-packs, and I did sell one off to a coworker of mine. Hero Killer Stain, what a detail on that pop. That thing is insane. And then the last pop I added here, I didn't want to add any Freddy Funkos just because there's a ton of them and they're not necessarily the best pops, though I do really enjoy a bunch of them. But I felt like this one could not be left off of this podcast, and that is Frenom. And if you guys aren't familiar with that term, that is the Freddy Funko as Venom. And this pop is wild. Basically, the story behind this pop is there's 24 of them. I believe they were limited to 24 pieces. And God, I'm not going to be able to remember his name. Julio something. I can't remember his last name. He basically owned 18 of those pops. He was controlling the market. What a man. What a legend in the Funko community to have 18 of 24 of those pops. I believe it was 18. It could have even been 19. And he would flex them. He would show pictures of them in his bathroom like it was nothing. He controlled the market on them, and they were basically worth like 20 grand a piece Canadian, maybe even American, that might be. So he controlled that market. Since then, he has sold off a bunch of those. I don't know if he's gotten rid of all of them. I'm sure he'd probably keep at least one or maybe even multiple, because he's the guy, man. He's the dude for those Freddy Funkos as Venom. A really cool pop, unfortunately, with only 24 pieces and basically one owner of most of the market. Just an insane pop. And again, like just another piece of history for Funko.
We're going to move on to 2020 now. 2020, interesting year. The world pretty much shut down. We only had 2 months of anything being open. Adam Sandler, Dinosaurs, Hunter x Hunter, and Anchorman were some licensors. There's 4 pops I listed. Gelatinous Cube. What an amazing pop. What a unique pop that is just so different, so irregular compared to a lot of pops. I have to mention, in terms of personal favorites, the Recyclops Dwight from the same convention as the Gelatinous Cube. I mean, that very first one was cool. The second one was meh, and then the third one, it's like, okay, finally we ended off this Cyclops lineup, even though they're missing 2 versions, but it is what it is. But 2 pops that, like, I would argue with people, these were like the best pops of 2020 as terms to overall hype, the detail, and basically how much they sold, especially the last one I'm going to mention. So the first one is the glow-in-the-dark I Am Iron Man previews exclusive from Avengers Endgame. Like, people went nuts. They were angry about the New York Comic-Con one from 2019 and how it wasn't accurate, but then they came out with the one for 2020 and blew the roof. Insane. People kept buying them left, right, and center. One of the best Marvel Cinematic Universe scenes of all time. And then I got to mention about that very first pop of the child, Baby Yoda, Grogu. When at the time, yes, The Mandalorian came out in 2019, but no Grogu child pops were made at that time because Star Wars was so hush-hush about the reveal of the child, because if they would have gave that information to toy companies, it wouldn't have been such a big reveal as we seen it in that, like, I believe the first episode they showed off the child, and it just became a huge thing. Oh my God, Baby Yoda. And then that pop is the most sold Funko Pop in history out of any characters that Funko has done. Like, even I believe if K-Dog and Fisher are listening to this, they could probably confirm they've mentioned they've had, I think, at least 2 or 3 restocks of that initial child because it just kept selling out. People wanted the child. It was just absolutely insane. So when you talk about the greatest Funko Pops of all time, and especially if you're going to talk about at least one Funko Pop that could be under that category from the 2020s, it's got to be the child, the OG one.
Yeah, I guess I'll start there with the child. Yeah, I mean, the most sold pop of all time. It's got to be up there in the greatest for everybody. You can't deny it, though it might not be one of the best pops in the world. It's a piece of Funko history. I mean, the most sold pop of all time, and that is crazy. Awesome pop. I do own it. I also own the 10-inch version because they're both wicked. So moving on to the rest of the pops for 2020, starting off with the Umbrella Academy, the Young Ben pop. Unreal. That's a pop that's awesome. Huge grail piece, and it looks so cool with the bloodiness on him. Also, I have the Blacklight Carnage. Wicked pop. DK owns it. I don't own it. I feel like a dummy for that because that is such a cool pop. Ice Cube in the Impala 64. That's a wicked pop. I know that DK, I believe, has bought one of those in the past to gift to his brother. Yoda with Dagobah. Yeah, that's an awesome pop. Of course, the Dagobah hut. That one is cool as well. But the X-Wing coming out of the swamp with Yoda, that is just a masterpiece of a pop. McDonald's, that was 2020. One of my favorite sets of all time. McDonald's. I love anything to do with McDonald's. So when Funko got Funko Pops for McDonald's, I was more than happy, and I own basically everything you can get for the most part when it comes to McDonald's pops. I also have Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy. Those are great pops, part of the SpongeBob set. Probably the 2 most detailed pops when it comes to SpongeBob pops, maybe besides that 2-pack that I talked about with Shredder and the Leonardo. And then also I have the last thing is the Spider-Man 2-pack, the Entertainment Earth exclusive one where the Spideys are pointing at each other. That's awesome. I mean, what a meme moment. We have seen since then more meme-ish pops, but that was kind of like the first one where it's the Spideys pointing at each other, and a hilarious 2-pack that I still don't have in my collection, so I'm gonna have to look for that pretty soon.
All right, so now moving on to 2021. I didn't really write much stuff here, but it was the debut of the deluxe albums. I should have mentioned pop albums came out in 2020. The unfortunate debut of the artist series lineup, and it was the debut of the pop game and comic covers. New licensors included Demon Slayer and Green Day, were the only ones I could think of, and 2 pops. I don't know why I can't really remember much of 2021, even though I thought it was a pretty great year. I know that this year the Jaws Moments, that was a GameStop exclusive, and it was also the one with the Emerald City Comic Con treasure skeleton that was glow in the dark. I remember those came out. And then obviously, if I'm thinking of personal favorites now as I think about it, when you're a Pokemon fan, Charizard came out in 2021.
I have a bit listed down for 2021, and those are like kind of like groundbreaking pops for the most part. So I'll get to those after. First, we'll start off with, can't even read my own writing. What does that say? I have no clue. Some black something. I don't know what it says though. So we'll skip on that one and we'll go right on to the Jumbo Galaxy Galactus. That's a gorgeous looking pop. I mean, that's kind of what I would like to see for Artist Series, the way that that looks. That's an awesome pop to begin with the normal one. Also, I have the Treasure Skeleton, the glow in the dark one. That's so cool. I mean, they're both cool, the non-glow one, but the glow in the dark one is kind of the one to get. More pricey if you can afford it, but definitely a really cool pop. I have the diecast Captain America, the debut of the diecast pops, which is really cool. Obviously, we've seen quite a few diecast pops, and unfortunately we're seeing those chases that are silver, which isn't the greatest thing in the world, but the diecast pops are pretty dang cool for what they are. Oh, okay, I remember what the black was now. It's the Black Parade pop albums, one of my favorite pop albums. Really cool for My Chemical Romance. And then the last thing I have is the deluxe albums with Kiss and whoever else was part of it, Metallica, a bunch of different ones, obviously.
Moving on to 2022 now, the debut of the VHS covers and, of course, physical NFT pops. There weren't that many like newer licensors besides maybe a few. Some of them I will like mention because two pops I mentioned at the same time. I mean, personal favorites include Knuckles, the new Knuckles from Sonic the Hedgehog that's flocked, that I own thanks to K-Dog and Fish. Shout out to them. Summon Skull from Yu-Gi-Oh! Both MD and I have been really wanting that pop for so long. And when they released it at the end of December, pretty much, glad that they ended up releasing it. There's also Borat and Steve from Blue's Clues. Pretty much a pop that is considered easily the best pop of 2022, and it could be of all time. The E.T. and Elliot moments, glow in the dark pop.
Yeah, I have that listed down because I do believe it is one of the best pops of all time. I mean, it's a gorgeous set. It's glow in the dark, super iconic movie with E.T., and it's just so different. I mean, it's gorgeous. It's a really, really nice pop. I also do have the Steve with the handy danny notebook listed. That's a really dang cool pop. Here I have concert moments listed. Summon Skull, of course, is great as well. And then the last thing that I have listed for 2022 is the Spider-Man 8-pack.
All right, so the final year we're going to be talking about is 2023. This year, even though we're not completely done with 2023 yet, we're about halfway there. No pun intended to Bon Jovi, Living on a Prayer. We could talk about pops that we could consider as the greatest pops, at least of this year so far. Maybe some of these could be of all time, but I wouldn't really say it's of all time, but we can mention that there are some innovative pops. I mean, first, this year was the debut of the pop movie posters. That's something brand new. But as terms of lineups that basically are coming out, Trailer Park Boys is something we've talked highly of. I think a contender for one of the best pops of the year could be the Classics Lotso. Another pop that actually I would consider putting into our huge like top 50 list for this year has to be that Funko Shop exclusive Lights and Sounds Optimus Prime. I mean, that's a crazy Lights and Sounds, easily the best Lights and Sounds pops that has been made thus far out of any licensor. The newer gelatinous cube from WonderCon. I mean, if you thought the first one was great, this thing was just over the top compared to that one also. And then the last one that I put that could be a contender because of how innovative it was is the new moments from the Flash movie, where he's basically catching all the babies and how you can actually see the buildings are kind of three-dimensional. I think those are some top contenders of at least the best pops this year, but not sure if any of them would be considered up there for like of all time.
Yeah, 2023, we've definitely gotten some really cool pops so far. Obviously, Trailer Park Boys, some of the best singular pops that we've seen in a while, and me and DK are probably both going to get the full set of those, especially if they end up announcing more pops for Trailer Park Boys. I also have the Blacklight Gremlins that we just talked about on a recent pod. Those are awesome. I love Gremlins so much, and I love Blacklight, so super excited to see those pops. I also have the Andre and Hulk Hogan in-ring moments, arguably one of the most iconic moments of all time in WWE/WWF of Hogan body slamming Andre. So really cool to see that. I also have the Julius Pringles, an awesome ad icon that we're finally seeing that I've wanted for so long. So it's great to see that. I have the Phase 3 moments from Stranger Things with Dustin, Eddie, and the Demon Bats. That's so cool. Really glad to own that. And the last pop that I have listed down for 2023 is a pop that I think will easily make it very high if we do a top 50 list for 2023. And that is the Hakuna Matata moments with obviously Timon, Pumbaa, and Simba. That thing looks great. The way that they're walking on that log is just gorgeous.
Anyways, guys, that is going to be the end of our special 200th episode of a Funko Popcast. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let us know what you think are the greatest Funko Pops of all time. And we hope to see you guys on another edition of a Funko Popcast. 1, 2, 3, I'm out of here.
They said we weren't going to make it. 200, baby. Peace in, peace out.